The wind was cold that afternoon. The sky was turning gray and the sun was slowly hiding behind the far hills. A little girl, no older than 8, stood near a broken wooden fence with her hands gripping a thin branch. Her feet were sliding on the soft, muddy ground. She hadn't meant to come this far from home. But when she followed the small stray dog into the fields, everything happened so fast. One moment she was laughing and chasing it, and the next the ground beneath her gave way. She slipped and ended up hanging over the edge of a shallow ravine. Her breath came out in short gasps. Her tiny fingers were turning red from holding the branch too tight. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears loud and fast. The dog barked from the top, pacing in small circles as if trying to figure out how to help her. She didn't know what to do. The wind made the branch shake a little, and she felt the mud slowly crumbling under her feet. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Please, just make it quick." The fields were empty. No one else was nearby. Her parents were still at the house, probably preparing supper, not realizing she had wandered this far. The rancher lived a few miles away at the far end of the valley. He had known the family for years, and sometimes he helped them fix fences or herd cattle. That afternoon, as the cold breeze grew stronger, he was saddling his horse in the barn, ready to check the back pasture. As he pulled the leather straps tight, he noticed something unusual. A dog's bark echoed across the valley. It wasn't the sound of playful barking. It was sharp, high, and repeated. He stopped what he was doing and listened again. His eyes narrowed. The wind carried the sound clearly now, and something inside him told him this wasn't normal. He tossed the last strap in place, grabbed his rope, and mounted his horse in one quick motion. Meanwhile, the little girl's arms were aching. She tried to pull herself up, but her feet kept slipping in the mud. Her shoes were soaked and cold. She looked down at the dark drop below her. It wasn't a huge fall, but enough to hurt badly if she slipped. The thought made her eyes fill with tears. She pressed her lips together and tried not to cry out loud. She didn't want to let go. She didn't want to be alone. The dog barked louder. She glanced up and saw its small brown shape pacing along the fence line, tail stiff, ears alert. It barked toward the open fields again, as if calling for someone. The sun was dipping lower, and the sky was now painted in soft orange and gray. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of dry grass and rain. Far away, the rancher urged his horse forward. His boots pressed against the stirrups, and his coat flapped behind him. He knew these lands well, every fence, every dip, every tree. He followed the barking sound, trusting his instincts. His horse moved quickly through the tall grass, its hooves thudding against the hard ground. As he rode closer, the barking grew sharper and faster. The little girl heard the faint sound of hooves. At first, she thought she imagined it. But the sound grew clearer. Her heart jumped. She lifted her head slightly, her hair blowing into her face. She wanted to call out, but her throat felt dry. She tried again, this time louder. "Help! I'm here!" The rancher heard the small voice carried by the wind. He turned the horse toward the sound. When he reached the fence line, he saw the dog barking at something near the edge. He slowed the horse, scanning the area. Then he saw her, small hands gripping a branch, her legs dangling over the muddy edge. His chest tightened. There was no time to waste. The girl's hands were slipping little by little. The branch creaked, making a soft cracking sound that sent fear through her body. She held on tighter, but her arms were so tired. The wind pushed against her face, making it hard to keep her eyes open. She thought about her mom calling her in for dinner, about the warm fire inside the house. She wanted to be there, not hanging between earth and air. The horse stopped near the fence, and the rancher jumped down quickly. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground. He moved fast, tying the reins to a sturdy post so the horse wouldn't wander. He dropped to his knees near the edge, careful not to startle her. His voice was calm, strong, and warm. "I'm here," he said. "Don't move. I've got you." Her small eyes met his. For a moment, everything went quiet. The wind, the barking, even the trembling in her arms. She felt a strange kind of safety in that steady voice. He reached for the rope tied to his saddle and looped it quickly around his arm. Years of ranch work had made him quick with knots and ropes. The ground beneath the girl shifted again, sending a few pebbles rolling down. She gasped and tightened her grip. "Please," she whispered again, her voice breaking. He nodded firmly. "I'm not going to let you fall," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. He moved closer to the edge, stretching out the rope carefully. His movements were slow and steady, showing no panic. The girl held her breath. The dog barked behind him as if cheering him on. The light was fading fast now, and the first shadows of night were crawling across the field. He tested the ground with one knee to make sure it was solid. The earth was damp but firm enough to hold his weight. He reached out with one hand, not too fast, not too slow. "Grab the rope," he told her softly. She nodded, her lip trembling, and reached with her tired fingers. At first she missed, but he didn't rush her. "Take your time," he said gently. "You're doing good." Finally, her hand wrapped around the rough rope. The feeling of the strong fiber gave her a tiny spark of hope. He slowly tightened the rope, making sure it was secure. "Good job," he said in a calm, steady voice. "Now hold on." She tried to shift her other hand from the branch to the rope, but the movement made the branch crack louder. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I can't," she said softly. "Yes, you can," he replied firmly. "You're stronger than you think. Look at me." She looked up into his eyes. They were kind, steady, and full of quiet strength. For a brief moment, the fear in her chest loosened. She took a shaky breath, then slowly let go of the branch and grabbed the rope with both hands. He moved closer, ready to pull. The rancher could feel the weight of her small body through the rope. It wasn't heavy, but it was everything. One wrong step and the muddy edge could give way. He anchored his boots into the ground, making sure he wouldn't slip. He didn't rush her. He didn't yell. He just held the rope, guiding her slowly upward, inch by inch. The wind howled softly through the dry grass. The dog barked once, then stopped, watching closely. The sun had almost disappeared completely, leaving only the orange glow on the horizon. The rancher's heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. The girl could feel the rough rope under her hands. It burned her palms a little, but she didn't let go. She pulled herself up, one small movement at a time. Her arms shook. Her breathing was heavy, but she kept going because his voice told her she could. "That's it. You're doing great," he said again, steady as the ground beneath him. She was so close now. She could smell the dry grass. She could see the horse standing a few feet away, its ears pointed forward as if watching everything carefully. One more pull, one more brave breath. The rancher reached out his hand toward her. "Take my hand," he said softly. Her small fingers reached toward him, shaky but determined. Their hands touched, warm against the cold air. He held her tight. The moment their hands met, something inside her changed. She didn't feel like a scared little girl hanging over the edge anymore. She felt like someone was there for her, someone strong and calm. And that made all the difference. She held his hand tightly, and he gave one strong, careful pull. She rose a little higher, her shoes scraping the muddy edge. He leaned back, steadying himself, and prepared to pull her the rest of the way up. The night air grew colder, but neither of them noticed it much. In that moment, the world felt very small. It was just the girl, the rancher, the dog, and the fading light. She didn't know how long she had been hanging there, but now, for the first time since she slipped, she believed she was going to make it home. The rope tightened, their hands stayed locked, and hope grew stronger than fear. The rescue was not finished yet, but the first step was done. She was no longer alone. The rope felt rough in her small hands, but now it was her lifeline. The rancher's steady grip gave her courage she didn't even know she had. His boots pressed firmly into the ground, and his muscles tensed as he slowly pulled the rope, careful not to make any sudden moves. The girl tried to help by pushing her feet against the muddy wall, but the ground was soft and slippery. Even so, every time she slid a little, his hand held her tighter, keeping her from falling back down. The wind was cold, but his voice was warm. "Almost there," he said softly, never letting fear slip into his words. "You're doing good. Just a little more." She took a deep breath and tried again, pulling with her tired arms. Inch by inch, she moved upward. Her hair stuck to her damp cheeks and her heart pounded fast, but now she could see the top more clearly. She wasn't staring at the dark ravine anymore. She was looking at the open sky above with the last soft light of the evening. The rancher leaned forward, stretching out his free hand toward her. She saw it and reached as far as she could. For a moment, her fingers almost touched his. But then her foot slipped on a wet patch of mud and her body jerked down a little. She let out a small gasp, her heart jumping. His arm didn't move back. His hand was still there, strong and steady. "I've got you," he said in the same calm tone. "Look at me. We're not giving up now." She wiped her wet cheek with her sleeve and nodded. Her breath came out in little puffs in the cold air. She tried again, gripping the rope tighter, feeling its rough fibers press against her palms. She lifted her foot carefully, pushing it against a small root sticking out of the wall. With slow, determined movement, she climbed higher. He leaned down just a bit more, close enough for their hands to touch this time. Her fingers slipped into his palm and he locked his hand around hers like a strong anchor. The moment he felt her hand in his, everything moved faster. His boots dug deeper into the soil, his back straightened, and he pulled her up with a firm but gentle motion. The girl felt her feet leave the slippery wall behind. She didn't look down this time. She only focused on his arm pulling her up, on the warm strength in his grip. Her breath grew louder in her ears as her body crossed the edge. When she finally reached the top, he lifted her carefully and placed her on the solid grass next to him. She didn't say a word at first. She just sat there on the ground, breathing hard, her hair falling over her face. The wind brushed past them, making the grass rustle softly. She pressed her hand against the earth beneath her and felt it. Solid, safe, steady. She wasn't hanging anymore. She was back on the ground. The rancher crouched beside her and gently adjusted the rope back over his shoulder. His voice stayed calm. "You're all right," he said softly. "You did great." She finally looked up at him. Her eyes were red from crying, but they were wide with relief. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she nodded slowly, as if that was the only way she could speak. The little dog barked once, as if cheering. It ran around them in small, excited circles, its tail wagging fast. The rancher reached down and untied the rope from his belt. Then he stood and carefully lifted the girl in his arms. She felt small and light in his strong hold. He carried her toward the horse waiting patiently near the fence. The horse snorted softly as they approached, as if it understood what had happened. The rancher gently placed her on the saddle, wrapping his warm coat around her shoulders. It smelled like leather and hay, a scent that felt strangely comforting after everything she had just gone through. He climbed up behind her, making sure she was secure in front of him, then took the reins. The first steps of the horse were slow and steady. The sound of its hooves against the ground was soft at first, then grew rhythmic. The night air was cold, but the warmth of the coat and the gentle sway of the horse made her feel safe. The dog followed beside them, keeping close like a little guardian. For a while they didn't talk. The fields were quiet except for the sound of hooves and the faint whisper of wind moving through the grass. The stars were starting to show, tiny lights blinking in the dark blue sky. The rancher rode carefully, avoiding the muddy patches and rough rocks, keeping the path smooth so she wouldn't be frightened again. The girl leaned back slightly against him, her eyes half closed from exhaustion. Everything that happened was still spinning in her head. The slip, the fall, the cold, the fear, the sound of his voice, the feel of his hand pulling her up. It was almost too much to take in at once. But the steady rhythm of the horse was like a heartbeat that slowly calmed her down. As they crossed the open pasture, the warm lights of her home came into view. A faint golden glow spilled through the windows and smoke rose softly from the chimney. She blinked, feeling tears return to her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. She was going home. The rancher guided the horse toward the front gate. As they approached, her mother burst out of the house, her face pale and worried. She had been searching the fields for almost an hour, calling out her name. When she saw the horse and the familiar figure behind it, she ran forward, her arms already open. The horse stopped, and the rancher carefully lifted the girl down, holding her gently as if she were made of glass. The moment her feet touched the ground, her mother swept her into a tight hug, holding her close, whispering over and over that she was safe now. The little dog barked again and circled around their feet, its tail wagging as if proud of what had just happened. The rancher stood quietly, watching the reunion with a soft smile. He didn't speak. He never liked to make a big thing of what he did. To him it was simple. You help when someone needs help. But to the girl, this was something she would never forget. Later, when she sat wrapped in a blanket by the fire, she looked at him sitting in the wooden chair near the door, his hat resting on his knee. She didn't have big words, but she whispered, "Thank you." He tipped his hat slightly and said, "You were brave out there." The dog lay at her feet, warm and calm now. The wind outside had quieted down and the fields were dark except for the stars. Inside, everything was warm. Her mother gave her a cup of warm milk, and the rancher stood up to leave. She didn't want him to go without saying something, so she whispered again, a little louder this time, "I'll never forget." He paused at the door, gave her a gentle nod, and walked out into the cool night. The horse neighed softly as he mounted it. The sound of hooves slowly faded into the distance. mixing with the quiet rustle of the wind. From that night on, every time she walked near the fence, she remembered that moment. The cold wind, the dog's bark, and the steady hand that reached for hers. She never forgot how it felt to be saved just in time. Years passed and the little girl grew older. She became someone who loved the land just like the rancher did. She learned how to ride horses, fix fences, and care for animals. But no matter how much time went by, that evening stayed with her like a quiet memory carved in her heart. Whenever people asked her why she loved the valley so much, she never told them the full story. She just smiled and looked toward the old fence line where everything changed. She remembered the sound of hooves, the warm coat, and the simple words that meant everything. I've got you. She carried that moment with her all her life, not just as a memory of fear, but as proof of how strong hope can be when someone chooses to help. It reminded her that sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms or make loud speeches. Sometimes they are quiet people who ride through cold fields when the night is falling, just because they care.